Howdy. Welcome to the Gateway to the Smokies podcast. This podcast is about America's most visited national park, the Great Smoky Mountains National Park and the surrounding towns. This area is filled with ancient natural beauty, a deep storied history, and rich mountain cultures that we explore with weekly episodes. I'm Joseph Franklin McElroy, a man of the world, but also with deep roots in these mountains. My family has lived in the Great Smokies for over 200 years. My business is in travel, but my heart is in culture. Today, we're going to be talking about forging a blacksmithing career in the Smoky Mountains. But first, I got a message from our sponsor, which happens to be me. Imagine a place evocative of motor courts of the past, yet modern and vibrant with a chic Appalachian feel. A place for adventure and full relaxation. Imagine a place where you can fish in a mountain heritage trout stream, grill the catch on a fire, and eat accompanied by fine wine and craft beers. Imagine a place with old-time music and world cultural sounds. There is no other place like the Metalworking Motel at Maggie Valley, North Carolina. Your Smoky Mountain adventures start with where you stay. Another sponsor is SmokiesAdventure.com. The Smoky Mountains and the surrounding area is a vacation destination for all seasons. Some of the nation's best hiking trails, waterfalls, outdoor adventures, and family entertainment can be found right here. Start your adventure by using SmokiesAdventure.com. That's Smokies, plural, adventure, singular.com, to explore all the wonderful features of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Trails, waterfalls, Cades Cove, where they got elk and historic buildings and more. Then check out the awesome family attractions and entertainment you and your entire family can enjoy. And if you're looking to have an interesting life event, you can find places to have interesting outdoor weddings or elopements or honeymoons or just romantic getaways. The goal of SmokiesAdventure.com is to become the leading information portal for adventures in the Great Smoky Mountains. I'm going to tell you about a few events coming up. Here at the Metalworking Motel, we're going to have a wonderful event in celebration of Mother's Day this weekend, May 6th through the 8th of 2022. And it's called Wildcrafting and Mother Nature's Natural Garden Program with Isla Hatter. And it's a weekend honoring female empowerment and iconic Appalachian women. And that's what better time to do that than Mother's Day. It kicks off Friday night when we will have acclaimed author, wilderness survival expert, Haywood County Search and Rescue team member, and record-setting endurance athlete, Nancy East, to present her program, Moms Moving Mountains. And she will share her experiences in the great outdoors, as well as her amazing endurance hiking achievements and a lot of her search and rescue stories that are quite interesting. And then she'll have a book signing of her new book. And that's $10 for admission, and it's free for the guests in the motel. And then on Saturday in the afternoon, we're going to have a whole adventure with Isla Hatter, who's a legendary wildcrafting expert, renowned author, filmmaker, instructor, and tour guide for the Great Smoky Mountains National Park at their elite field school. She's an expert on edible plants, medicinal herbs, and anything pertaining to wildcraft foraging and Appalachian plants, trees, and flowers. She's been on television shows and videos and books, and has worked on as an advisor for movies and television shows. And she will be presenting her beloved program, Mother's Nature Natural Garden, and leading, which is talking about foraging and all the things that that you can do with those plants and herbs in the mountains. And then she's actually going to lead a tour on the grounds of the Metalworking Motel, which has a large wooded recreation area and a natural mountain heritage trout stream, and identifying nature's bounty. So you can actually get hands-on experience finding these things right in your backyard. And then it'll all culminate with a free barbecue supper and then music by Mike Ogletree and friends. And the admission for that is $20 or is free for motel guests. And then on Sunday morning, we're gonna have a mother's brunch where they can enjoy cake and champagne at the motel. So please come by if you can. Upcoming events at the festival ground is March 13th and 14th. There's the Icons of Hot Rodding Festival, where you'll get 50s and 60s hot rod and custom cars, truck events, events for and for models that are 1969 and older. And there'll be 50s and 60s music, vintage vendors, pinstripers, food vendors, judging, awards, and presentations. And so that we look forward to that very much. As you know, sometimes I like to do a poem about that's related to the content of the show that's we're going to be doing. And I found one, and it's by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, who was around from 1807 to 1882. And it's called The Village Blacksmith. But, you know, I'm also, it talks about, you know, it also talks a lot about, you know, how to live life and to be proud of your accomplishments and the things that you've done, and to work every day with a pride in that. And, you know, and some of that, I've been spent 27 years in New York, you know, doing a lot of things there. And now as a season has come where I'm moving back to North Carolina. I'm going to be full-time in the Smoky Mountain area. I'm actually going to be living in Asheville. And somehow this spoke to me as well. So let me tell you about this poem. It's under a spreading chestnut tree, the village smithy stands. The smith, a mighty man is he, with large and sinewy hands. And the muscles of his brawny arms are as strong as iron bands. His hair is crisp and black and long, and his face is like the tan. His brow is wet with honest sweat. He earns where he can, and looks the whole world in the face, for he owes not any man. Week in, week out, from morn till night, you can hear his bellows blow. You can hear him swing his heavy sledge with measured beat and slow, like a sexton ringing the village bell when the evening sun is low. And children coming home from school look in at that open door. They love to see that flaming forge and hear the bellows roar, and catch the burning sparks that fly like chaff from a threshing floor. He goes on Sunday to the church and sits amongst his boys. He hears the parson pray and teach. He hears his daughter's voice singing in the village choir, and it makes his heart rejoice. It sounds to him like his mother's voice singing in paradise. He needs must think of her once more, how in the grave she lies, and with his hard, rough hand he wipes a tear out of his eyes. Toiling, rejoicing, sorrowing, onward through life he goes. Each morning sees some task begin, each evening sees it close. Something attempted, something done, has earned a night's repose. Thanks to thee, my worthy friend, for the lesson thou hast taught. Thus at the flaming forge of life, our fortunes must be wrought. Thus, on its sounding anvil shaped each burning deed and thought. So, today our guest is Matthew Shirey. Matthew is an award-winning blacksmith and metalworking artist who has resided in Sylva, North Carolina for the last 15 years. A native of Pennsylvania, Matthew has been a full-time craftsman since 2017 and owner of Shira Forge since 2005. He's a member of the American Bladesmith Society and attended the John C. Campbell Folk School and the Penland School of Craft, both of which have been mentioned in this program before. And breaking news, he was also the winner of the 2022 Season 9 premiere of the History Channel's hit show Forged in Fire. And his unique style is the result of studying 18th and 19th century ironwork and cutlery, combined with the lessons learned while forging all of his products literally by hand. And when he is in creating measurable function art in any shape, he enjoys spending time outdoors with his wife, a notable Sylva photographer, and their two children. Hello, Matthew.
Hi.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Yeah. Well, obviously we want to talk about your recent national television show, but I want to explore what you've done before that, because I think the richness of your life is more important than the transient glory of media these days. But congrats on that.
Thank you.
So let's talk about your journey. You came from Pennsylvania. Where in Pennsylvania?
I grew up in a little village called Mayport in Clarion County, Pennsylvania, which is the western part of the state. It's kind of the northern tip of Appalachia.
Cool. And what was your journey from there? Where did you go after Pennsylvania?
Gosh, I went to college right there in Clarion County, kind of was in and out of school a few times. And then I made a couple journeys out west, spent a little time in Montana, and then lived in Oregon for about a year and a half. And that kind of fell through for me. And I moved back to Pennsylvania, and I was kind of in limbo, didn't really know what I was going to do. I just knew at that point, I had set my sights on blacksmithing as a career. And a friend of mine worked at Camp Daniel Boone down here in Waynesville, North Carolina. And he called me up and said, hey, if you're looking for work, they have an 18th century living history program called Boonesboro Village. And their blacksmith bailed at the last minute. And they need someone in 4 days to be down here and ready to work for the summer. And so I threw my forge and anvil and everything I had in the back of a minivan and cruised on down here.
Wow, that was an opportune moment for you, huh?
Yeah, it was pretty serendipitous.
Oh, cool. And so before that, you had found your calling as a blacksmith. You didn't really have a career other than, so your focus has been what you've achieved all along, right?
Yeah, I spent a number of years working with kids in different faculties, and washed dishes in kitchens and did carpentry work and did whatever I had to do to pay the bills until I was able to make
any other crafts that you explored?
I've done a lot of woodworking as well. I was a shop teacher for 6 years before I made the jump into smithing full time.
Right.
And so I did a lot of wood turning on the lathe and got into building some banjos, and I built an addition on our house and some other carpentry framing kind of work. So
Cool.
I've done a lot with wood as well.
Cool. Well, I talked a lot in this first segment, so now we're gonna have to explore how you came to blacksmithing in the next segment. So we're gonna take a break right now.
Okay.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business, or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant. And on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you on edge? Hey, we live in challenging, edgy times, so let's lean in. I'm Sandra Bargeman, the host of The Edge of Every Day, which airs each Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc. Tune in live with me and my friends and colleagues as we share stories and perspectives about pushing boundaries and exploring our rough edges. That's The Edge of Every Day on Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Howdy, this is Joseph Franklin McElroy back with the Gateway to the Smokies podcast and my guest, Matthew Shirey. So some of you know that I like to often have a beer, craft beer, local craft beer when I'm on the show. And so today I am having an IPA called King of the Mountain from local brewery here in Haywood County called Boozoo Brewery. And I recommend it highly. It's kind of good. And Matt, are you drinking water or you got something else in that?
I've got a cup of tea.
Okay. So you have a story about how you became interested in blacksmithing. You attended a workshop in a state park near your hometown.
Yeah, I had in high school, I got into the living history, experimental archaeology stuff, dressing like a frontiersman of the 1800s and shooting flintlock rifles and that stuff. And so that got me interested in blacksmithing, and I started looking locally for anybody that could teach me anything and help me get going. And I happened to walk into like a heritage center in Cook Forest State Park in Northwest Pennsylvania. And they had some classes going on that summer. And it just so happened they had a weekend blacksmithing class with a couple local blacksmiths. And so I signed up and showed up and spent the weekend standing out in the hot sun, forging away. And pretty much knew at the end of that weekend that this was something I had to do, and hopefully would someday be able to do it for a living. And one of the blacksmiths that taught the class ended up calling me a week or two later. He had scored an old champion hand crank riveter's forge, and was nice enough to give it to me for $50 when it was worth probably 200. And so I got home and set that up, and somebody else gave me an anvil they had sitting in a barn forever. And that was it. I bought a bag of coal and started forging.
Fabulous. So what do you think, you said you had been a woodworker too. Is it the hands-on? What separated it from doing woodwork? What made it your life's calling?
I think just the magic of forging, just getting that steel hot and being able to manipulate it and sculpt it and shape it into whatever I wanted and make something functional. And I just, as long as I can remember, I always had an obsession with knives, and was always trying to make them in my dad's shop when I was a kid and whatnot, grinding old files and saw blades and stuff. And so just, woodworking is fun. And there's a lot of things I like about wood, but metal's just where it's at for me.
Well, I can understand it. Besides being a businessman, I've actually been an artist as well, and I have a few pieces here and there. But the thing that was the essence for me was learning to really draw. And I tried lots of other things, but I started learning to draw in lots of media, and I just felt like a real pleasant emotional experience when I just let myself get lost in that sort of right brain, left brain dichotomy.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like you get a buzz.
Yeah.
Right. So I when you find your medium, it's like a singing in your blood, right?
Yeah. Getting in that creative zone, the rest of the world kind of disappears, and I find myself up at the shop, 2 or 3 hours will go by and I'm kind of unaware of it, because I'm just really immersed in the process and kind of lose myself,
Well, it's interesting. Somebody could walk in on you, I bet you, when you're in that phase, and they start talking to you, and you can look at them and you can't even understand what they're saying.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah.
Right? It's like it takes a second for you to switch your consciousness so that you can actually, speak in a language.
Yeah. I've got a helper one day a week, and sometimes I run him out of there a little earlier than I intended to, because I just need to have the space to myself and not have the distraction, and not have the kind of need to communicate. I just need to be able to focus on what I'm doing.
So that you say I read that you focus sort of like 18th century blacksmithing, right? Is that different than 19th, 20th century blacksmithing, or is it is this the tools, or what is it?
Well, I use modern tools. I've got a hydraulic press and a power hammer and belt sander and all of that. I'm not doing everything in an 18th century manner, but a lot of the process is still the same as it was hundreds of years ago. I'm still, forging and doing a lot of the same stuff. And I think ultimately a lot of times I'm trying to make things that fit into that time period, are period correct for that time period, and authentic for that time period.
So you went I saw you went to some really good craft schools. Is that how you learned, or did you also learn a lot on your own?
I have mostly learned on my own.
That's what I figured.
You know, when I started, you know, the internet was kind of a new thing at our fingertips. And so I started digging on there, and any books I could find on blacksmithing, I was reading. And, you know, when I lived in Oregon, I kind of found a couple local blacksmiths and just started hanging out at their shop and picking their brains as much as I could. But, you know, mostly just hours and hours at the forge, stumbling through it. You know, I've got scrap knives and axes laying everywhere that are failed attempts. And then, you know, when I moved here, I was here for a few years and took a class at the folk school and at Penland. And, you know, I was pretty established as a blacksmith by then, but those classes definitely, you know, improved my capabilities quite a bit.
Well, they give you, classes help you get into some specific techniques that other people spent that time that you did on yours.
Right.
And you don't have to spend that time, but you know, you have a specific need for it, or it could give you an idea of what you need to do for certain pieces that you're working on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's cool. Do you have any influences that you consider important to you? Mentors, influences.
Say that again. Mentors
or influences, you know.
I've again grown up with an interest in early American frontier stuff. I don't know if you're familiar with the House brothers out of Woodbury, Kentucky. Herschel, Frank, and John. Mm-hmm. They make flintlock rifles and knives and axes and kind of the whole gamut of early American tools. And their work was always really inspiring to me. Again, when I was in high school, I discovered the Foxfire books.
Oh yeah, those are great books.
You know, those have been an endless resource to me and a source of inspiration. Outside of the early American kind of stuff, I got into the work of Albert Paley a lot when I first got started. His early stuff. I did some architectural ironwork for a while, doing gates and fireplace screens and stuff. And so his work was always really inspiring to me.
Well, and what was the first thing you made?
The first thing I made at that workshop was a fork and a little bracelet.
And do you still have them?
I do not. Nope.
No.
I have no idea where those ended up. I actually may have them somewhere, but I don't know where they're at.
Well, what's one of the first things that you made that you still have?
Gosh, I still have a couple knives I made years ago that I don't think I would let see the light of day.
Oh yeah, right. Listen, I'm sitting in a room in the motel where I've put a lot of my old artworks, and you know, I look at it and it's like, this stuff it sucks, but you know, yeah. It's also my private history, you know. So it's like I also remember the fun I had from discovering things from it. So
right.
Yeah. So you never want it to get out of here. And when the commandment is burn it when I die.
Yeah. Right.
So do you remember the first item you sold?
I think the first thing I ever sold was a friend of mine asked me to make a dinner triangle. She wanted to hang a dinner triangle on the porch. And I remember it being quite a bit lower on the bar than I was aiming for. But she still was kind enough to pay me for it.
Oh, that's fabulous. Oh. Yeah, the first item I ever sold was my dad had somebody that was from some car company, and they wanted a little painting on a thing in their kitchen on the thing going over the sink. So I made it and I got paid for it. It was like, wow.
Yeah.
And they actually put it up. I was like dumbstruck that they actually thought it was worthwhile putting it up. So that was fun. What are the types of stuff that you make right now?
focus mainly on knives, axes, and carbon steel frying pans. That's really, like I said, I got into doing architectural ironwork for a little bit. I kind of thought that was where I needed to go to make a living at it. And a friend of mine who I think you've had on here, David Bruin, he said, listen, I've spent most of my career doing architectural ironwork, and I wish I had spent most of that time making knives and axes. And he said, do what you love, and you know, it'll come to fruition. Don't get boxed into doing something that's going to make you miserable. And so I kind of stepped away from the architectural ironwork a few years ago and started focusing on knives and axes, and got into making these frying pans because I saw that there was a market for it. And I have no regrets. I really, you know, I think if I was still doing architectural ironwork, I wouldn't enjoy it anymore, and I wouldn't be happy doing it. So.
Well, I have a question. You know, I've gotten interested in the campfires and, you know, campfire cooking and, you know, cast iron cooking, but I've been intrigued by the carbon steel stuff. What's the difference between the carbon steel pans and the cast iron pans?
The main difference is the creative process. You know, cast iron is just that. It's iron that's been melted and poured into a form and cast. It tends to be, you know, more brittle than carbon steel. Cast iron pans can break, whereas carbon steel, they're forged to shape. You could throw them against a brick wall and they are not going to break. I mean, they're super strong. Functionally speaking, they're very similar. My pans are probably a little lighter compared to the same size as in cast iron, and I think the biggest advantage my pans have over cast iron is a longer handle. So it'll get warm and it'll get hot if you're cooking at a high heat, but for the most part, you don't ever need an oven mitt for it. And they're a little thinner and smoother than cast iron as well.
Can you saute with a cast iron, with a carbon steel pan?
You can saute, you can bake, you can sear.
It's hard to do it in a cast iron, you know, when you got to shake it and all that stuff. Those
right.
are heavy, right?
Yeah, that stubby little handle is hard to get a hold of, and mine have a nice curved handle that you can get that. I can't do it, but if you can do the flip, you can do it with these pans.
Well, I'm 6'5", 300 pounds. I got a little bit of strength, but it's still even tough for me, you know. So,
yeah.
Well, listen, we got to take another break. We'll come back. We'll talk more about your art and the things that you've done.
Okay.
I am Joseph Franklin McElroy, host of the new podcast, Gateway to the Smokies. It airs on talkradio.nyc every Tuesday night from 6 p.m. to 7. Every episode is dedicated to memorable experiences in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park and surrounding areas. This show features experts and locals who will expound upon the richness of culture, history, and adventure that awaits you in the Smokies. Tune in every Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 7 on talkradio.nyc.
Are you passionate about the conversation around racism? Hi, I'm Reverend Dr. TLC, host of the Dismantle Racism Show, which airs every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc. Join me and my amazing guests as we discuss ways to uncover, dismantle, and eradicate racism. That's Thursdays at 11 o'clock a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a small business trying to navigate the COVID-19 related employment laws? Hello, I'm Eric Sauver, employment law, business law attorney, and host of the new radio show, Employment Law Today. On my show, we'll have guests to discuss the common employment law challenges business owners are facing during these trying times. Tune in on Tuesday evenings from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc, now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Howdy, this is Joseph Franklin McElroy, back with the Gateway to the Smokies podcast, and my guest, Matthew Shirey. So Matthew, I was reading on your website, you formed Shira Forge in 2005, but you didn't actually go in full time in 2017. So I imagine having kids, things like that. It took a while for the business to build up. Is that the reason you didn't get to be able to full time with that?
Yeah, and through the bulk of that time, I had a teaching job with Southwestern Community College. I was teaching shop at a local high school, and it was a really good job, and I enjoyed it. And so there was no reason to give it up. And then one day the funding for it dried up, and things changed, and I was out the door. So I spent a year or two working as a welder and as a carpenter, and I was driving all the way up to Cashers every day, and I was kind of sick of that. So I said, you know what, I've got a shop here that I can make a living in. And so I took the leap.
That's fabulous. I saw you you got lots of different recognition. Somebody should go to your website. We'll talk about that at the end and see all the press you've gotten. You've done some fabulous things. I think it's pretty inspiring for anybody wanting to be in the craft world, that you can actually make a living at it, right?
Yeah.
Where did the name Shira Forge come from?
Shira Forge, and it's
sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
It's the original spelling of my last name. My ancestors have been in Western Pennsylvania since the late 1700s, and over time that name got changed to Shirey, but the original spelling a few hundred years ago was Shira. So I've always been really fascinated with my ancestry and whatnot. So it was kind of a paying homage to my ancestors.
That's fabulous. So you say your name by saying it's Shira, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I get these. Bob Plott, who's the head of the Smoky Mountain, Mountain Heritage Center for the Metal Art. Introduces me to people and provides the background information. Sometimes I don't have the time because, like right now, I'm moving into Asheville. I don't get to do the research on your name, so I apologize for not having it absolutely correct. So life is good in the Smoky Mountains, right? I'm moving back. I obviously always wanted to be here, but I had to try my adventures in the world, and the particular line of business I was in required me to be there. So, but your career is flourishing, and then you got to be on a television hit series. How did that happen? Forged by Fire, Forged in the Fire.
So it's been on. I was just on the season premiere of season 9, so it's been on 8 years now. And of course, being a blacksmith, I was interested in the show as soon as I saw it, and 5 or 6 years ago, I applied to be on it, and I didn't get a call back. I interviewed and all that, but I didn't get a call back. And then a couple years ago, I decided to try again, and got the interview, and they said, we'll be in touch. And then the pandemic happened, and they said, look, everything's on hold right now, but we'll be in touch. And so last July, I got the call from them, had the plane ticket, was all set to go film, and 2 days before I was supposed to fly out, I got tested positive for COVID, so I couldn't go anywhere. And then about the end of October, they called me again and said, are you ready this time? And so it all came together.
Cool. And for people listening, can you explain the format of the show to us and how you participated?
Sure. So there's 3 rounds of competition. There's 4 bladesmiths. The first round, you have 3 hours to forge and heat treat a knife within whatever parameters and challenge they set forth. For my episode, it was a crushed car challenge. So when we walked out on the floor, they uncovered a car that had been crushed, and we had to salvage our steel for the knife out of that. They had hidden some good pieces of steel in there, or, in my case, I found a piece in the front end, CV joint that was really good steel that I could make a knife out of. So anyway, the first round, one person's eliminated. Second round, we had 2 hours to put a handle and a guard on the knife, and then they put it through some pretty severe testing, and a second person is eliminated. And then the final 2 go home to their own shop for 4 or 5 days and forge whatever epic weapons they choose. And so for us, it was down to me and a fellow named Mike from Nebraska. We had to forge a pair of curved guitars, which are a weapon from ancient India. They had to match, they had to have fullers in the blades and some other parameters to follow. So got back down here. I spent 4 days in my shop with the camera crew and forged these weapons, went back up to the set, and the judges put them through a final round of testing and then choose the winner.
Wow. And what's their criteria for the winner?
They put it through, it had to meet all the parameters, blade length, shape, all that. And then they put it through all kinds of testing. For us, there was like a stabbing test with the ballistics gummy, a slicing test with some cane kind of things. So, they went through several different tests, see how the knives perform, and then the judges kind of step away for a minute and make their decision.
Wow.
So basically they're judging not only the aesthetics of the weapon, but the functionality of it.
So a little, it's sort of a remote way. It's like the chef competition show where they got to cook based upon the parameters of the.
Right.
I see. Yeah.
Right.
Well, how did you know do you know what a guitar looks like, or how it's made?
I had a vague familiarity with them before the reveal on the final round. And I did, I did a little research and looked at some Google images and whatnot. And then just kind of went for it,
Cool. And what was the grand prize?
$10,000.
That's not bad, right?
Yeah, it's been nice.
It's not bad, right? And you get to go back on future shows, right? And compete against other champions.
If they ever call me, I'd be happy to go back. Often they do have, a championship round or a beat the judges round or something like that where they call people back. So I'm, keeping my fingers crossed that I get that call next season or something.
And how is it changed your life personally and professionally? Are people asking for your autograph now?
I've had one little boy at my son's soccer game ask for my autograph, which was pretty funny. Professionally, it's allowed me to invest in my business a little bit more, upgrade some of my tooling and stuff. It's here in the Sylva area. I have people I've never met before come up and congratulate me and whatnot. I feel like I've probably gotten more local business from it than anything else. Being in the local paper and whatnot, it's given me some exposure here in Western North Carolina that's been really good.
So it's helped your business then. Sure,
Absolutely.
Cool. I mean, that's good. I mean, yeah. I mean, these reality TV shows can be a nice thing, but they don't really change your business life that much. I have a friend of mine that won what is that Project Runway, or was in it, and it didn't really change her fashion life that much. So she had 1 or 2 years of things, but it's also good to have on your resume. Yeah. But you're still a fairly young man, right? You are what, in your 30s or maybe
44.
44. So what are your future plans? You got any projects you're looking to do?
I plan on just continuing doing what I'm doing, trying to improve my craft, get better at what I'm doing. I'm eligible at this point to test for my journeyman stamp with the American Bladesmith Society. So in the next year or so, I'm hoping to go through that process and get my journeyman stamp. I'm hoping here in the next year or two to start teaching again. I've taught classes in different places, with the last one being Haywood Community College in Clyde. I've taught some blacksmithing classes there, and I took a break for the last 2 or 3 years to focus on my business. But I think, the older I get, the more I'd like to get back into teaching some and, pass on what I've spent 20 years figuring out.
Cool. Are you gonna do any other product lines?
Really what I'm trying to do now is make more one-off knives. I've been kind of making them in batches and that sort of thing, and I'm going to continue doing that, but I really want to get to the place where I can kind of make what I'm inspired to make and make some more one-of-a-kind pieces.
I've seen you made a lot of belt knives. Is that like what you wear on your belt? Is that what that means?
Yeah, just kind of an everyday carry knife or a hunting knife. I like to carry a fixed blade knife, so I've always got a little 3 or 4 inch blade on me. So I make a lot of knives like that.
Now that I'm back in North Carolina, I could carry a knife with me all the time. In New York, you have a limit of like 4 inches.
Right.
I want to talk to you. I do want to. I'm getting into the whole cast iron and cooking and heritage cooking and things like that. I do want to talk to you about doing a custom, some sort of, it's trivial, but I think it's important too. I want to do a knife that looks good on camera, right?
Yeah.
Right. I think that if we're doing cooking shows, it's got to look like, oh wow, that's really cool. I want, somebody wants that knife, right? So maybe.
I've been messing with Damascus quite a bit lately. If you're familiar with that, I'm sure you are. It looks pretty.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But also, you talk about mountain heritage. You look at things like the old hickory. I mean, I don't know how good they are, and I'm not wanting to necessarily be that primitive, but at the same time, there's just sort of an authenticity to that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
and I do on a lot of my knives. I leave some forged texture. I some of them I clean up the whole way, but I really like that forged texture and that kind of primitive, natural look. I like my knives and stuff to look like they belong when they're in the woods.
Uh-huh. Oh, that's exactly the kind of thing that I think works well. And you also do I've seen you did a butcher, whatever, those big butcher blades.
Mm-hmm. Right? Like a cleaver.
Yeah. So for a moment, I've had half the beer, so I'm now drawing blanks on for certain words.
That's why I stuck with the T.
Well, it makes me more loquacious, but sometimes it makes me less intelligent. Yeah, but it's worthwhile, right? It's just a podcast. It's not like I'm not like I'm live. Wait, I'm live, but it's not like TV. So that's great. And there was one other line you've done some things like kitchen stuff and ironwork and things like that. Do you do anything like camp kitchen experiences, like setups and stuff like that, or grill work?
Not really. My frying pans work great on an open fire just as well as the stove. And in the past, I've made some fireplace fire irons and whatnot for campfire cooking, but I do that kind of stuff for myself these days, but I don't really make them to sell.
All right, cool. Well, we have to take a last break here, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about some of the other things that you've done, and your things that you find appealing about the Smokies and Sylva.
Okay. Sounds good.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
In a post-COVID world, you may have many unanswered questions regarding your health. Are you looking to live a healthier lifestyle? Do you have a desire to learn more about mental health and enhance your quality of life? Or do you just want to participate in self-understanding and awareness? I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each Thursday, I will tackle these questions and work to enlighten you. Tune in every Thursday at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will be Frank About Health to advocate for all of us.
Calling all pet lovers.
Pet Avengers, assemble!
On the Professionals and Animal Lovers show, we believe the bond between animal lovers is incredibly strong. It mirrors that bond between pets and their owners. Through this program, we come together to learn, educate, and advocate.
Join us live every Wednesday at 2 p.m. at talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Howdy, this is Joseph Franklin McElroy back with the Gateway to the Smokies podcast and my guest, Matthew Shirey, correct?
Shirey, yep.
Shirey, oh my.
The business is Shira, the last name is Shirey.
Oh, Shirey, okay. So Shy is okay. So I got it now. I'll remember it. So, and we're talking about blacksmithing in the mountains. So you mentioned you want to get back into teaching. Do you think you might open your own school?
No, I don't think I have any interest in that. I think I might start offering some small workshops in my shop. My shop's pretty small. I could only accommodate probably 3 people in a class, but I'm thinking about doing some like little weekend workshops in my shop and maybe reconnecting with Haywood Community College and starting to reach out to John C. Campbell Folk School and some other schools around the country like that. There's some really great facilities out there. I don't need to build one on my own.
Your shop could be a school, but it would be all the students would be online. All right, you could do a YouTube thing, or you could even do live podcasts, right?
Yeah, my 13-year-old is really getting into making videos, and he's been helping me with some videos and stuff. So there may come a point where I start making some more YouTube videos.
Well, so you have somebody that knows how to do YouTube videos, and you have a wife that's great at the lighting. You should be able, to do something. Maybe you just might want to get somebody to help you write some scripts or something like that. But
yeah, I've got a couple ideas. I just got to find time to make it happen.
Cool. So, this show is also about a little bit about tourism in the mountains, and I love talking to really great people and cultural icons and things, but also to ask them, what do you enjoy doing in the Smoky Mountains?
Anything outside, we try to get on the lakes and rivers as much as possible in the summer. We do a lot of hiking. I'm an avid hunter and fisherman when I can find time to do it. The natural beauty of this place is what brought me here, and we try to make the most of it.
Cool. And when you're in Sylva, what is your favorite place to get breakfast?
My favorite place to eat, period, in Sylva is Guadalupe Cafe.
Ah, yes.
Right on Main Street.
I love you get that tray with the multiple salsas, right?
Yeah.
That is incredible. Yeah, we went there during COVID, and you were still able to sit at a picnic table out there and get that salsa, those multiple, and then everything else there is great.
Yeah.
How about entertainment? What's a great entertainment place in Sylva?
Innovation Brewing, both in Sylva and their Dillsboro location. They often have music. Let's see, where else? Every Friday night they have music down at the Bridge Park in town in the summers. So that's those are kind of our general go-to places. Honestly, especially since the pandemic, we don't make it out very much, but when we do, those are the places we hit.
And now, you've raised your children here in the Smokies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm going to be bringing 3.5-year-olds here. All right. So you've had children at that age. What are the things I should do with 3.5-year-olds in the Smokies if they can't get anywhere else?
Goodness. Again, getting on the lakes is always fun.
What's your favorite lake?
We go down to Fontana quite a bit. We've actually got a favorite lake, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. I don't want other people to go there.
Well, text it to me in the chat.
Maybe it's a pretty tiny one around here, and not many people know about it. And I want to keep it that way.
Oh, okay. Put it in the chat. Give me a break. Come on. Oh, so that's great. I mean, lake life. My parents had a place that we used to go to down in the Georgia line with I'm drawing a blank on the name of it. It's been a while since we went there, but they had a pontoon boat. It was always a blast.
Yeah.
So we're building a heritage center, right? Smoky Mountain Heritage, and I've been talking about how I want to do cooking. I was thinking of getting a sort of a large-sized camp kitchen built, right, with a cook set, things like that. Any recommendations how to do that?
Honestly, not really. I mean, I think the sky's the limit, but I've never built an outdoor kitchen and don't know, a lot about it. But, if you get to that point, let me know and maybe I can, come up with some fire pokers and utensils and stuff like that for you.
All right, cool. And I noticed that a local bar and restaurant had a big screening and welcome home event for you after you won the convention competition. I thought that was great. What was that venue?
That was Lazy Hiker Tap Room on Main Street in Sylva. It's a small town. We know everybody and know the managers there and whatnot. So we went and said, hey, we'd really like to have a party and invite all of our friends to come watch this on the big screen there. So they were more than happy to make it happen.
Cool. Now, how can people find out more about you?
My website's definitely the easiest way to find me, www.shiraforge.com.
Mm-hmm. And
are you on there?
Are you on Facebook?
I am on Facebook. I do most of my social media stuff on Instagram.
Uh-huh. Okay. Lots of pictures of stuff that you produce. That makes sense, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Can people ask for custom work from you or just buy from that site? What can they do?
Both. I've got, products listed on the website that they can order. Everything's made to order. I don't really have anything in stock generally. But if you have, a custom knife or axe or something you want made, shoot me an email and we can try and figure something out.
What do they need to provide you to make a custom product?
Generally, like if they want a custom knife, I need to know if they want mono steel or Damascus, what kind of blade shape, blade length, handle material, handle construction, whether it's a full tang or a hidden tang process. Just all those little details. And then sometimes we just go with the details and other times I can sketch something up if somebody wants to.
Cool. All right. Well, any other shout outs you'd like to give?
Just thanks to you guys for having me on here. I really appreciate it.
Well, I hope you'll come by. We're doing at the Smoky Mountain Heritage Center, the Bob's doing, we're having events where they have things like, reenactments. So you mentioned earlier that you were doing that. And they have, I think they're going to have blacksmithing things going on, and you're going to have, all sorts of heritage events I think you would enjoy. So I hope you will come by and meet me in person, and we can, talk about pans and knives.
Absolutely. I'd love to participate in some of the events you've got going on there and maybe teach a class there at some point.
That would be fun. I mean, we're starting to do some really good classes like that. And I think that's beneficial for everyone involved, because I really love celebrating the culture of these Appalachians and historical things and celebrating what's good about our history.
Absolutely.
And the crafts was by far one of the most beautiful things of our history.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
Cool. So we're part of the talkradio.nyc network. This podcast is every Tuesday from 6 to 7. And there's many other podcasts on this network that I enjoy, try to convince you to see, because it ranges from small business to other travel shows to self-help to, information about pets, information about insurance, personal wellness, spirituality. So it's not often you get a network that's all live podcasts. So I think there's a dynamicism to live that and a less formality that you can get. The host is on the show drinking and screwing up names and words, but it makes you authentic. You also know that you get some authentic information. It's not
right.
It's not pre-planned media. So anybody listening, please go to talkradio.nyc and find the shows that might be of interest to you. Now you can find out more about this podcast on Facebook at facebook.com/gateway to the Smokies podcast, where we will stream live every Tuesday, and also have the previous episodes and other information about the Smokies that you might find useful, and the towns and crafts and things going on. And we are also, all our previous episodes are hosted on smokiesadventure.com, If you go to that site, smokiesadventure.com, you'll find a link at the top saying Gateway to the Smoky Podcast. And you can go and see all the podcasts. And we've had great people from craftsmen to politicians to outdoorsmen to historians to book writers, things like that. We're starting to get a nice inventory. I think it's well over 60 now of shows that are not, they're not just tourism, you know, oh, look at this great place, come and see it. It gets into some thought about the people here and representing well how, you know, thoughtful, intelligent, and deep this mountain culture is. And I encourage you to go there. And I also run another podcast on talkradio.nyc called Wise Content Creates Wealth. I happen to be a marketing expert, and I'm delving into the world of AI, artificial intelligence, and how it's changing content production and you know, search and marketing, and how behavioral science is being used to influence what you're reading. So both from a business perspective and from understanding what's happening to you as you go to sites and going to information, you know, to help you understand the world as it's being presented to you. It's a good, I think it's a good show. All right, so thank you. I'll see you next time on Gateway to the Smokies podcast from 6 to 7 next week on Tuesday. Ciao.